close your eyes and let the quiet carry you like a soft, slow tide. Breathe in deeply once and then again. Imagine a small parsonage set among gentle hills low, rounded in the far distance, green with late spring, and quiet as a settled thought. There's a narrow lane that leads to the house. It is edged with hawthorn and wild roses, and at the turn of the lane, you can see smoke rising in a thin, slow ribbon from the little parlor chimney. The air is cool and full of blossom. Everything seems to breathe softly. That is where our story begins. A family small and close, sheltered by those hills. A quiet father, kindly and thoughtful though a little prone to sigh, keeps his household with a steady hand. A mother, brave, practical, and full of gentle abilities, guides the home, and two daughters, Mary the older and Agnes the younger, grew up there in a sheltered world where books, music, and tender care filled the hours. Their life was not rich in money, but it was rich in small, warm things. You can picture them. A humble parsonage parlor, a small piano by the window, a blazing winter hearth, a cat who curls itself into a plump gray ball on a chair, and the soft clack of knitting needles in the quiet evenings. Agnes was the kind of child who carried quiet courage like a secret pocket of sunshine. She loved music and drawing and the little birds on the hedgerows, and she loved most of all the comfortable rhythm of home. She also had a heart that trusted, sometimes too readily, and that trust, like a young plant, would drive her to grow toward the light. Then, like any honest life, theirs had a season of change. A hopeful plan, a merchant's venture across the sea, was lost to storm and shipwreck. Money vanished in an instant, and with it, the comfortable ease they had known. Not all change is terrible. Even when it is sudden, the young learn temper, the old learn what is truly necessary. Still, the household did feel the sting of loss. Worn wheels were mended, coats were darned carefully, and a pair of candles were used with new thrift. For Mary and Agnes, there were lessons to take from these prudences. And for their father and mother, there was the slow reshaping of hope. As the family adjusted, a new thought came to Agnes. She had watched, with a mixture of curiosity and compassion, the lives of little ones in the neighborhood, and the way some girls and women had to work at teaching their children. She began to ask if she might try to teach herself and others, and so help her family. After quiet conversations and a few anxious looks, her parents agreed, only because they saw how determined she was. Agnes packed a small trunk, said a good, trembling goodbye, kissed a soft cat, and set out for her first position as a governess. You can imagine the little gig trudging away down the lane, the flapping veil, the line of hills receding, and then the moment she looked back one more time. There was the parsonage, the place that had been home, and the people she loved, and she folded them in her memory like a letter kept under a pillow. She asked air and sky to watch over them while she learned the world beyond the hedgerow. Her first school would be in a house called Wellwood, large and imposing, with carved gates and a long gravel drive. It was the kind of place where decorum was served like an order, polished in parts, rather chilly in others. Standing in the hall for the first time, under a high lamp, Agnes felt the hush of that big house like a cool room after a bright day. The lady of the house was polite, but distant. A woman who measured courtesy in degrees and expected the governess to move gently among them like a careful shadow. There were 3 children, a boisterous little boy called Tom, and 2 girls, Mary Ann and Fanny, as bright and unruly as summer storms. The boy loved to run and ride and to test the bounds of mischief. The girls had their own ways, one willful, the other given to fits of loud temper. Agnes, still tender and unpracticed in the ways of such households, found the work much harder than she had imagined. She learned quickly that teaching required more than knowledge of books. It asked for patience, like a long, steady warmth and firmness that was steady, but not cruel. A governess is sometimes like a lighthouse keeper. You are responsible for the light and for the children who rely on it. But often the building around you will be noisy and crowded and contrary to the calm you try to keep. With time, Agnes learned how to anchor herself, to hold a squirming Tom quietly while he improvised loud antics, to coax Mary Ann into learning a word she would rather not speak, and to find gentle ways of drawing the little one's attention back when their minds and hands scattered like blown leaves. In the privacy of the parsonage, she had not been forced to be so steady so often. Now, in the high rooms and under the steady gaze of the house, she learned the hard, honest craft of guiding children. There were small humiliations along the way, to be laughed at, or to feel invisible in the drawing room while ladies in satin discussed decorations, to be blamed when the children were noisy, and praised or indulged when the same behaviors charmed some passing gentleman. She learned that authority, to be proper and lasting, must be measured with justice and with heart. Even so, Agnes kept a gentle belief that kindness and perseverance could mend stubborn habits. She read them verses that taught tenderness and told them little stories that opened their small hearts. And sometimes she would walk with them in the garden when their tempers needed softening. At night, when the house lay quiet and the nursery fires burned low, she would kneel and say a prayer for patience and wisdom. All this time, outside the lodge and away from the carved doors of Wellwood, lived other people. A woman called Nancy, who lived in a small cottage, a man who read the parish and came to listen and help, and a number of other lives woven into the wider countryside. The new curate, a thoughtful man named Mr. Weston, was one who visited the poor with true concern. He would sit and read gospels and verses beside a dim candle to those who could not read themselves. When he came into Nancy's little kitchen, he seemed as natural and kind as breath in the open, and his attention softened the thick husk of sorrow that sometimes covered people's spirits. Agnes began to notice the small good he did, He cleared a path of kindness through rugged ground. He rescued a cat from a gamekeeper's cruelty, and he minded the poor man with fevered lungs. He listened when people spoke and would, when possible, bring a little coal or a loaf when someone's fires grew cold. It was not the manner of a showy charity. It was quiet, careful service. And he had a steady voice when he read in church, a voice that reached the mind before the ear. It was clear, warm, and true. Often, when children had tormented the day away, and household gossip had gone round and round like a restless bird, Agnes could rest, for a while, in the thought that goodness lived somewhere near, that some people came simply to do the right because it was right. Mr. Weston did not grandstand. He did not trumpet his deeds, he simply did them. There's a moment in many lives, a single summer evening when the world seems to come to a gentle pause, when chances and choices sit together and quietly look at you. For Agnes, that evening came one calm sunset hour on the cliff where the green fell away into the blue. The air had been washed clean by a shower. The sea mirrored the sky. Foam shone like bits of pale silver that the tide would lift and carry. The little parsonage in the hills seemed a world away. It was there on that cliff, with the sea breathing under them, that Mr. Weston spoke as a man must speak when his heart is full. He spoke without flourish. His words were simple and steady like the tide. He asked her if she would be his companion in life. He offered the quiet warmth of a shared duty and a shared house, not the flash of something showy. Agnes heard him, and with the faithful rhythm of her own truth, said yes. There is a hush in this moment, as if the cliffs themselves had paused to listen. You can picture them, the two of them standing close together, the gulls wheeling, the last long gold of the sun sliding slowly down the world. He put his hand in hers very gently. She gave the hand back just as gently. It was an unpressured love, sure and plain, and full of duty and comfort. Soon after, the wedding took place, warm, simple, and blessed. Agnes returned, now as a wife, into a house that was not a closed, distant lodge, but one opened by care and community. Mr. Weston's parish became hers also. She taught other people to be kind through her steady presence. Her mother, cheerful and strong, opened a small school to teach young minds, and the family found a new way of being. Honest labor, mutual dependence, soft laughter at ordinary jokes, and the quiet joy of looking after each other. If you breathe softly now, you might feel how the ordinary world rounds into a gentle completeness. There are no sudden fireworks, no invented climaxes. Instead, there is the warming sense of a life set right by honest work and quiet love. The storms of youth's quick griefs and losses voice their lessons. The small, steady goodness of daily habits, mending worn shoes, opening the door for a neighbor, reading a verse to a lonely woman, become the measure of a good life. In the deep evening now, imagine the parsonage with its window glow spilling across the lane. Picture Agnes at her small table, turning the pages of a Bible or a simple hymn book by the lamplight. She listens for the wind in the trees, for a distant dog's bark, for the comfortable stir of the cat in the kitchen. Mr. Weston sits nearby, reading in his steady way, and sometimes they look up at each other with a smile, as if no sound were needed between them. There is a peace here that grows as you let it, a sense that small acts matter, that steady goodness outbeats showy deeds in the long run, and that most of human happiness is made in the plain hearthroom of daily care. Love like this is not trumpeted. It is folded and set away, an everyday miracle. The children who learned at their mother's knee will remember the soft discipline of those evenings. The poor who were visited in winter will recall the small kindness that warmed them, and the hills will keep the shape of the parsonage in their memory forever. Now your breath is slow and steady. The room is warm with the soft hush of night. Imagine the last light slipping behind the distant hilltops, the moon, a pale coin, rising and beginning its gentle sweep across the sky. The world is quiet. Let the steady, true things settle around you like a blanket. If your eyes are heavy, let them close. Carry in your heart the simple kindness of Agnes and her careful mother, the calm devotedness of Mr. Weston, and the small, unfashioned beauty of a life that chooses compassion every morning. Remember how even when money vanished and some plans were broken, what mattered most was the shelter of one another's hands. Picture for a moment before sleep takes you a narrow lane at dawn, dew on the grass, a small bird lifting its head to sing, and the light rising like a promise. Let the quiet settle in the small chambers of your thoughts. You are safe, you are cared for. You are allowed to drift toward sleep like a boat, easing onto a slow, luminous tide. Breathe out gently. There is only rest ahead. Good night.